confuse you all. All right. So I left you the last time with digital libraries, the Prime Minister's program of e-Vidya scheme, digital labs, teachers who are going to come together on a platform to teach more students. So education and right to education is a universal right, and it has now become a fundamental right. But what I mentioned towards the closure of the previous class, Anjali and Ritik, in case you cannot hear my voice or there's a problem, you will have to speak to me over the audio because I will not be able to see any of the remarks. So if there's something which anybody wants to say, you will have to speak to me. All right. So having said that, the last time, sorry.
Ma'am, video is again not clear.
अरे यार अभी कैसे अभी तो मैं क्लियर करके आ रही हूँ अभी इससे ज्यादा क्लियर नहीं होता whatever I'm saying will not waste much of time. This cannot be technologically perfect because it's not a perfect setting and you got to accept that. So coming back to from where we stopped, I said that we will go into the issue of equality and equity today. रीजन बीइंग अगर आप इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ के क्वेश्चंस को देखेंगे तो 2 बार उन्होंने सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट की बात की है दे हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ इन टर्म्स ऑफ सस्टेनेबिलिटी दे हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट intra-generational and intergenerational equity in terms of inclusive growth. So the last time when we said what is inclusive growth, it means the greatest good of the greatest number, means we provide fair opportunity of employment and livability to a sizable portion of the population. So the rich do not get richer and the poor do not become poorer. What we are talking of is that while the rich continue to grow, the poor grow faster. And here we come to the concept of equity. The whole concept of equality came from the United States of America when the black were not allowed or the colored people were not allowed to enter into the white schools. And there was a whole, it came up before the Supreme Court, there was a whole case of Brown versus the University Board where it was declared universally that everybody has equal right or equal access to schools. There cannot be any demarcation on the basis of color. This was a civil rights movement, happened way back in 1868. And to be very honest about it, equality does and did make a lot of difference to almost all the countries around the world. Equality means that everything which is there is for everyone. So if you are, an example which is classically given is that the same pair of shoes is provided to everyone. The same quality of shoes is provided to everyone. Now, the same education is being provided to all the students, but some students are coming from rich, pampered backgrounds, while the others are children of marginal laborers or those who are industrial laborers or industrial workers. There has to be a difference between the two. And here the whole concept of equity comes in. So the equity thinkers started saying, it's just not important that the same pair of shoes be provided to everyone. What is more important is that you give the right size of shoe to the right person. तो अगर मैं साइज 4 का जूता पहनती हूँ तो अगर आप मुझे साइज 6 का जूता देंगे क्योंकि आप सबको साइज 6 का जूता दे रहे हैं तो उससे हमारा काम नहीं होगा. And therefore equity favored that we make rules or we make laws which are to the advantage to the certain section of the community. So the USA started talking about affirmative rights. When it talks about affirmative rights, what does it say? It says that it will provide certain kinds of environment or certain kinds of social support and also economic support. If you are living or have so many less number of dollars per day in terms of income, then it made special provisions for the disabled and said under the Disabilities Act that the disabled have to be provided with a subway, they have to be provided with escalators, and in a particular setup, they have to be treated first. So these affirmative rights came in the form of equity. So not only do we need the same kind of shoes for everyone, we need the right size of shoe for a person. Now, if we compare equality and equity under the Indian circumstances, and you please need to linkage this up, that the right to equality under 14 and 15 of the Constitution and the directive principles of state policy, which keeps talking about equity, and this entire movement between directive principles of state policy and fundamental rights needs to be highlighted in your answer. So directive principles are the goals we are supposed to reach. And when they are realized, they become a part of our fundamental rights. So for example, free legal aid. Earlier a DP, but now an FR. Right to education. Earlier a DP, now an FR. And equal pay and for equal work when we talk about labor force. Again, a DP made a movement to your fundamental right. So these are the changes which are happening from the legal point of view or from the constitutional point of view, which you need to bring out in your answer. So when it talks about intragenerational and intergenerational equity, it is talking about the disadvantaged groups like women, like we talked about transgender, we talked about the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, and whatever efforts are being made by the government to support such groups. We also talked about how in agriculture, the government is trying to favor the farmers by giving them a minimum support price, which is nothing but a subsidy, and trying to bring them forward. Then we talked about the MSMEs, which are your medium and small scale enterprises, which are being given an extra budgetary support. Now, when we talked about inclusive growth, we talked about 6 elements of inclusive growth. When we talked about skill development, we talked about financial inclusion, we'd also talked about economic development, we talked about sustainable development, and poverty reduction. Now, if you really expand it further, when you talked of intergenerational and intragenerational disparities, you can even take regional disparities as a point of question. You can talk about industrial development, and you can talk about social development. So inclusive growth is actually a cyclical process. It is always said that for developing countries like India, where the middle class is a burgeoning middle class, the more people from the lower strata of society move up the ladder to the middle class, the more there is inclusive growth. So if you look at the axis, अगर आपका ये ग्राफ हो गया, ये आपका X हो गया और ये आपका Y हो गया, यहाँ पे आपका rich हो गया और यहाँ पे आपका poor हो गया, और we are talking about in terms of growth. तो अगर this is your growth axis, तो आपका क्या हो जाएगा? The poor will rise substantially. Okay. Now the rich are already at the top and they continue to grow. This is ideally what we talk about inclusive growth. What is happening for India is that while the poor were growing for some period of time, just before COVID-19 hit, and now after COVID-19, the poor have stagnated somewhere along here, because it is said that in times of recession, there is no job opportunity for the poor to grow. And despite so many support systems by the government, the policies of the government are by and large favoring the rich. And hence we have this kind of a graph for growth in India. Now, if you traditionally look at how do you compare a country's economic progress, we do it in terms of the GDP. अब ये ग्रॉस डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट जो आपका है, इसके कंपोनेंट्स एक्चुअली में क्या क्या होते हैं? Because see, economics is a tough subject. If I start talking about how labor is progressing and how employment is taking an inversion ratio and stuff like that, it will not help you, and it is not required in your civil service exam. Anyways, those who have a base of economics, good. It will be simple for you to understand. अगर आप परेशान मत होइए, उतना ज्यादा सोचने का जरूरत नहीं है. तो जब आप जीडीपी की बात करते हैं, तो आप किस किस चीज की बात करते हैं? आप जीडीपी में 4 कंपोनेंट्स इंक्लूड करते हैं. You include 4 components in your GDP. What are the 4 components of your GDP? The first is your personal consumption. ये बढ़ता है तो आपका जीडीपी बढ़ता है. क्यों? अगर आपका पर्सनल कंजम्पशन बढ़ेगा तो क्या होगा? इसका मतलब है कि आपका जो बाइंग परचेजिंग पावर है वो बढ़ रहा है. तो सबसे पहले आपका पर्सनल कंजम्पशन, दैट इज द फर्स्ट थिंग फॉर द जीडीपी. द सेकेंड पॉइंट इज योर business investment. Your business investment. Please don't think that this will be a part of your answer. I am explaining this to you for the sole purpose of making you understand. अब inclusive growth जैसा पहले सवाल आया है, वो कॉपी करके नहीं आएगा आपके पास. उसमें कुछ ना कुछ एलिमेंट में ट्विस्ट दिया जाएगा. तो अगर आपके पास कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी है, तो आप उस कॉन्सेप्ट को लिंक करके अपना जवाब बना लेंगे. That is why I'm explaining what is the GDP to you. So that when you're writing that answer, if 1, 2, 3, 4 are its component, if X has grown, Y has grown, Z has grown, O has grown, that means we have grown. That is the idea of wanting to explain it to you. So personal consumption, फिर आपका हो गया business investment, फिर आपका हो गया government spending. गवर्नमेंट अपने सोशल प्रोग्राम्स पर, अपने प्रोग्राम्स पे, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पे कहां पे स्पेंड कर रही है. और आपका फिर हो गया नेट एक्सपोर्ट्स. मतलब नेट एक्सपोर्ट्स क्या हुआ? इंपोर्ट्स माइनस एक्सपोर्ट्स, नेगेटिव है कि पॉजिटिव है, वो आपका हो गया नेट एक्सपोर्ट्स. तो अगर आपका पर्सनल कंजम्पशन बढ़ता है, बिजनेस इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ता है, गवर्नमेंट की स्पेंडिंग लाइकवाइज बढ़ती है. जब गवर्नमेंट की स्पेंडिंग बढ़ेगी तो इट कैन नॉट बी अ फिजिकल डेफिसिट. फिजिकल डेफिसिट क्या होता है? आप बजट में बहुत सुनते हैं ना कि वो कह रहा है कि पहले फिजिकल डेफिसिट हमारा 6.9 था, अब हमारा फिजिकल डेफिसिट कम होकर 6.4 हो गया. बट फिजिकल डेफिसिट है, इसका मतलब क्या होता है कि जो स्पेंडिंग पावर है गवर्नमेंट की, वो उसकी इनकम से कम हो गई. दैट इज द लिटरल मीनिंग ऑफ डेफिसिट, दैट योर एक्सपेंडिचर is more than your income. तो आपके अगर आपकी फिजिकल डेफिसिट 22-23 के बजट में उन्होंने 6.4% पे खड़ी कर दिया है. They say that this is amount of money which we are going to spend for which we have no income. मतलब it is paper money. And all developing economies are plagued with physical deficits. So we need to keep plugging it as much as possible. तो ये फिजिकल डेफिसिट 6.4% पर है. तो अगर गवर्नमेंट स्पेंड कर रही है तो इतना परसेंटेज जो वो स्पेंड करने वाली है उसके लिए उसके पास कोई इनकम नहीं है. और ये नेट एक्सपोर्ट्स है, मींस डू वी हैव अ surplus in our trade, balance of trade, or are we in the negative? We all know that we are in the negative for XYZ reason. अब अगर ये GTP के 4 पैरामीटर्स है और आपके पास इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ का सवाल आएगा, तो आप इनको कहीं ना कहीं प्लीज लिंक करने की कोशिश करिएगा. राइट? दैट इज द फर्स्ट पार्ट. Now let's come to the cycle of inclusive growth. So I just told you that inclusive growth is cyclic. अब जब ये साइक्लिक होती है तो सबसे पहले क्या होता है? राइजिंग. व्हाट डू यू हैव? यू हैव राइजिंग इनकम and job opportunities. You have rising income and job opportunities. Okay, that's the first. Rising income and job opportunities. I hope you can see the board and it is clear. Rising income and job opportunities is your first. Okay, then this will lead to what? It will lead to an expanding. It will lead to an expanding and more prosperous. It will lead to an expanding and more prosperous middle class. तो जैसे आपका लोअर इनकम ग्रुप खत्म होता जाएगा, उतना ही आपका मिडिल क्लास ग्रुप बढ़ता जाएगा. क्योंकि अगर वो फिर नीचे बिलो पॉवर्टी चला गया, तब तो आप यू आर इन द you are becoming a part of the economy of Chad and the other East African countries. फिर तो आप बिल्कुल ही चले जाएंगे. But अभी, for example, we are still proud and tell ourselves that we are a developing economy, that we have a hope for the future. और ऐसे तो वो कह रहे हैं कि हम 23-24 में $5 trillion की इकोनॉमी बनने वाले हैं, which is being propagated by BRICS and others. But I don't know if that's really possible. And to give you a very good example of inclusive growth is Brazil. So Brazil has not only created more jobs, it has plugged in its physical deficit assets, and it has grown its middle class. Another very good example is our next door neighbor, Bangladesh. Another very good example is Indonesia. These countries were in the red, according to the IMF, when we were talking about of structural reforms in 2008, 2009. But the Indian economy was in such tight jackets that coming out with those economic reforms itself was a big task, which we really achieved. Now, what has happened to the Indian economy is that that expansion and fluidity of structures, whether it is the social structure, whether it is the government structure, is actually not happening. We are investing in our infrastructure, but with no returns. And it isn't like a magical wand. What we need more is more government support, not just tall claims. This part you cannot write what I'm saying right now. But the truth is that if you look at the overall budget expenditure for social support, for agriculture development, over the previous budgets, there has been a cut down. And like I said in my previous presentation, there was a 10% cut down in health and education during the COVID time. So they're going to be very good and nice words and catchwords and phrases of this government. But if you really look at the net result, it is not coming. You cannot write that in your answer. What you need to know is the concept and how will it deliver. But you can always write that as of now, things are not really taking off, and you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to take it off. And that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is whether it's me giving the exam, whether it's you giving the exam, or the future generation will remain the same. The way forward is almost always the same. Uh, it is a set of objectives which we need to achieve and which we keep talking of. So let us come back to the cyclic nature of inclusive growth. तो पहले क्या होता है कि राइजिंग इनकम होती है और खूब सारी जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज होती है. तो पीएम कह रहे हैं कि वो जब गति शक्ति का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सुपर इम्पोज करेंगे एंड उनके 7 horses रन करेंगे, and along with it, the other changes that he's bringing about in the economy will result in 60 lakh additional jobs over a period of time. And we are waiting for that miracle to happen. 60 lakh jobs is not entirely from infrastructure development. It is also coming from sunrise industries. It is also coming from digitization of the Indian economy and the rest. But as of now, he says he's going to be able to create 60 lakh jobs. So you have to write that we are going to have 60 lakh additional jobs. If that happens, we are in the first cycle of the inclusive growth process. उसके बाद क्या होता है, आपका जो मिडिल क्लास होता है वो एक्सपैंड करता जाता है, और जब वो मिडिल क्लास एक्सपैंड करता है तो फिर आपका क्या हो जाता है, आपकी इकोनॉमी मोर रोबस्ट हो जाती है, becomes more robust, and the domestic demand increases, and the domestic demand increases. All right, and this leads to what? Which will ultimately bridge into this. This leads to something
बिजनेस इनोवेशन, इनोवेशन की स्पेलिंग करेक्ट कर लेना तुम लोग, इनोवेशन. ओके, बिजनेस इनोवेशन एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट. सो वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट राइजिंग इनकम एंड जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटी, एक्सपैंडिंग एंड मोर प्रॉस्पेरस मिडिल क्लास, which leads to a more robust economy and domestic demand increases. मतलब हम self sustaining हो जाते हैं, हमारी जो डिमांड है वो within the country rise करती है, और इसी वजह से we have been growing at a GDP rate of between 5 to 6%. Any guesses as to how G20 countries are growing? At what rate is the G7 having in terms of GDP? 1%. That too also with a great deal of push. So America has a GDP growth of only 1%. So it's the same with England and the other G7 countries. So they are all going through a recession period, और इनके पास कोई scope ही नहीं है for further increase in the GDP. Whereas the developing countries ought to maintain a GDP of 9 to 10%, which India was initially carrying out, but अब नहीं हो पा रहा है last 3-4 years से, तो we've seen that we are performing at a dismal 5 to 6%. They say that at an average we are growing around 7%. So let's go with that bright spot in our otherwise very gloomy economic picture. But anyways, so that means that as this, and the reason for that 5 to 6% growth is only because there is a burgeoning middle class, which is having its own set of demands, and the country is able to fulfill those demands. That's the most important part. The country is able to fulfill those demands. Okay, then you have a more robust domestic demand, you have business innovations and investments, and this is the most important part for any economy to grow. And the Prime Minister's vision in this regard is very, very clear, that we need more jobs, and that is how it should be. Now we've taken one part of the question, the other part, which was sustainable development, usko jo abhi World Summit hui TERI ki, that is the Tata Energy Research Institute, uski jo World Summit abhi first week February mein hui Delhi mein, which takes into account all South economies. It works in the area of South economies, and is the only international organization which has a summit in a developing country like India. So when TERI has given this paper, and I discussed the entire report of TERI in great detail for you, that was the part where you're going to write about the sustainable development. Of course, there'll be a small here there that we are going to spend so much in solar energy, that renewable energy sources are going to be making a big way and result in a generation of jobs. And it is said that the green economy is the economy of the future. So isme ek Geeta Mehrane has made a diagram for the flow of the green economy, which I'm sharing with you, and this is the last diagram for the day. So आप खाली उसको note कर लीजिए और फिर we will progress further. तो उसमें उन्होंने क्या क्या कहा है? उन्होंने कहा है कि ये अगर आपका, she makes 3 circles. Actually, her name is Gitanjali Mehra, not Geeta Mehra, Gitanjali Mehra. अब गीतांजलि मेहरा के हिसाब से ये आपका सोशल डेवलपमेंट का ब्लॉक है, ये आपका इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट का ब्लॉक है, और ये आपका एनवायरमेंटल डेवलपमेंट का ब्लॉक है. ओके, अब उनके हिसाब से आपकी जो ग्रोथ है, ये यहाँ पर तो बेरेबल है, ये वेरिएबल ग्रोथ है, और यहाँ पे जो है आपकी इक्विटेबल है, और ये आपकी सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ है, और यहाँ पे वो लिखती है कि ये वायबल ग्रोथ है. तो अगर सिर्फ एनवायरमेंट और इकोनॉमिक्स के का if you take only economics and environment together, then the common area will become viable. But when we include the environment, the economics, and the social parameters together, it becomes sustainable. Otherwise, social and environment will only make it bearable. Social and economic will only make it equitable. But when we include all the 3, it becomes what is called the green economy. And an inclusive growth is essentially a part of the green economy. That is the most important part which you should remember in the diagram. तो जब आपको 250 शब्द लिखने हैं और आपको 12.5 नंबर उससे मिलने वाले हैं, आपके पास ये छोटे-छोटे डायग्राम रहेंगे, तो आपकी वर्ड की लिमिट भी कम रहेगी, and you'll be able to make your point. I hope this point is clear to all the students. I have tried to put in papers from everywhere that I could get. I hope that it is able to reach out to you, because inclusive growth is a very fluid concept. आप इसमें कुछ भी लिख सकते हैं, but जो examiner के पास points होंगे वो लिखना जरूरी है. Now what I have tried to do for you is that I have tried to build in the traditional concepts of inclusive growth for you, and I have tried to link it to the present, that is 2022 तक में क्या-क्या उन्हीं parameters पे हो रहा है, वो subject matter I have tried to bring forward for you so that you are able to understand it better. With having said this, last time when we talked about the various indexes for understanding the parameter of economic and social development of India, we had spoken of the social progress index. We had spoken of the human development index, which according to me was important. And there is something called the इंक्लूसिव डेवलपमेंट इंडेक्स। अब क्योंकि ये इंक्लूसिव डेवलपमेंट इंडेक्स है, इसलिए आपको इसको समझना थोड़ा सा जरूरी है। अब इंक्लूसिव डेवलपमेंट इंडेक्स में भी इंडिया टॉप 10 कंट्रीज में भी नहीं है और टॉप 20 कंट्रीज में भी नहीं है on this inclusive development index. And inclusive development index does not include, it does not include the essentially the GDP. It talks about 3 parameters. One is growth and development of the country. It talks about inclusion, क्योंकि ये inclusive development index है, तो कितने सारे लोग लोअर मिडिल क्लास से या लोअर क्लास से or those below the poverty line have moved up in the chain and become a part of the middle class. That is your measure of inclusion. And then there is what is called the intergenerational and intergenerational equity and sustainability. अब इन मेजर्स पर इंडिया की ग्रोथ जो है, इंडिया इज 62nd out of 74 countries, and like I told you, it is not even in the top 10 or even in the top 20. Its neighbors are doing better. So Sri Lanka, Nepal and China are much higher in terms of this inclusive development index which I am talking of. और इसको बताना आपको जरूरी इसलिए है कि जो एक सवाल आया था, it has spoken of intergenerational equity, which is coming from where now? You know, it is coming from the inclusive development index. और inclusive development index का proponent कौन है? World Economic Forum. कौन है? वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक फोरम इसका proponent है. So means it's an index which is not being given by an NGO, because a lot of the indexes are being done by NGOs in other foreign countries, but this one's being done by the World Economic Forum. So it's on a very sound footing. So it says that India is not amongst the most top 10 and neither it is on the top 20, but it says that on this parameter, which is its intra-generational equity and sustainability, it is at the 42nd place, and this is because of its demographic. It's because of its demographic breakup. Demographic breakup में क्या है? एक एवरेज इंडियन की एज को 28 साल बताया जाता है, क्योंकि हमारे पास बहुत बड़ी पॉपुलेशन है जो 24 से 28 के एज ग्रुप में, which is considered to be the working class group, which includes youth like you and others who are a part of this breakup. So it says that intergenerational equity and sustainability, India is much higher and it's doing a lot in terms of energy, renewable energy and stuff like that. So it said that on that parameter, it is at the 42nd place, but on other parameters of inclusive growth, India is performing well below others and including its neighbors. That was one part which I wanted to emphasize. Now, one traditional way to go about inclusive growth is, now I can make you write all those schemes of the government of India which have been launched and which are there as a support network for the growth of the country as a whole. तो अगर आप बहुत सारे पैरामीटर्स देखेंगे तो उसमें इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ में एक सोशल डेवलपमेंट का पैरामीटर भी था. Let me just make you quickly go through the elements of inclusive growth once again, because it will help you. तो आप जो अपने प्रोग्राम्स गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के लेटेस्ट रहेंगे, आई होप जब आप अपने नोट्स बनाते हो तो यू लीव इनफ स्पेस कि कुछ उसमें आपको ऐड करना, तो आप उसमें ऐड करिए. ऐसी ही पढ़ाई की जाती है. आई होप यू पीपल आर डूइंग दैट. तो अगर एलिमेंट्स आप लेंगे तो एक होगा आपका पॉवर्टी रिडक्शन. तो जितने प्रोग्राम्स पॉवर्टी रिडक्शन पे हैं वो आप इसमें इंक्लूड कर लेंगे. फिर है आपका एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट की सारी स्कीम्स इसी से रिलेटेड है. एक होगा आपका एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन, एक होगा आपका एग्रीकल्चर डेवलपमेंट। मैं शॉर्ट में लिखती जा रही हूँ, बोलती जा रही हूँ, आप वैसे लिख लीजिएगा। एक होगा आपका इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलपमेंट, एक होगा आपका सोशल सेक्टर डेवलपमेंट, फिर एक हो जाएगा आपका रिडक्शन इन रीजनल डिस्पैरिटीज, इन रीजनल डिस्पैरिटीज, एक होगा आपका प्रोटेक्टिंग द एनवायरमेंट, एक होगा आपका equal distribution of income, equal and equitable distribution of income। अगर आप 8 पैरामीटर्स पे इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ को मेजर करेंगे और इनके साथ गवर्नमेंट की सारी स्कीम्स को लिंक करेंगे तो वो भी एक तरीका है आपको अपना जवाब बनाने का। सो नाउ फर्स्ट थिंग फर्स्ट, let's talk about the employment schemes and other schemes which the government of India is coming. These schemes have included and being run for a long period of time. इसमें कुछ नया नहीं है, ये आप कोई भी किताब उठाएंगे उसमें आपको सब डिटेल मिल जाएगा। I will just read out the schemes to you so that you are aware. कभी कभी हम इन स्कीम्स के बारे में बात भी आपसे कर रहे थे, पर जैसे मैंने आपको तेरी की रिपोर्ट दी उसमें मैंने आपको उज्ज्वला सारी चीजें समझाई। आपका प्रधानमंत्री का कौशल स्कीम, प्रधानमंत्री का जनधन योजना, ऑल दोज आई हैव स्पोकन टू यू। तो वो सारी स्कीम्स का अपडेटेड वर्जन मैंने आपको दिया है। ये स्टैटिक इंफॉर्मेशन है, इसको मैं बोर्ड पे लिख के टाइम वेस्ट नहीं करूंगी, मैं आपको खाली बता दे रही हूँ सो दैट यू आर अवेयर कि दी स्कीम्स एग्जिस्ट। इसमें सबसे पहली आपकी आती है महात्मा गांधी नेशनल रूरल एम्प्लॉयमेंट गारंटी स्कीम विच इज योर नरेगा, फिर प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन प्रोग्राम, फिर है मुद्रा बैंक स्कीम, दीनदयाल उपाध्याय ग्रामीण कौशल योजना, दीनदयाल अंत्योदय योजना, नेशनल अर्बन लाइवलीहुड्स मिशन, और फिर है आपका सर्व शिक्षा अभियान। अब ये सब आपको सर्व शिक्षा अभियान की जगह भी आपके पास क्या आ गया, ई विद्या आ गया। प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स डिजिटल एजुकेशनल प्रोग्राम जो आपके पास अभी आ गया अकॉर्डिंग टू द प्रेजेंट बजट। तो ये सारी स्कीम्स अपग्रेड हो गई, इस वजह से मैं आपको इनको लिख के नहीं बता रही हूँ, आप इनका कुछ डिटेल पढ़ लीजिएगा, रेस्ट वी आर गोइंग टू डू फर्दर। फिर भारत निर्माण है, फिर है नेशनल रूरल हेल्थ मिशन, फिर स्वच्छ भारत मिशन, मिशन आयुष्मान, प्रधानमंत्री जनधन योजना जिसके बारे में मैंने आपको पहले ही बताया है। Now, when we are going to go into the present conditions as to what and where it is required, we will first talk about the infrastructure development, which is your Gati Shakti. So, सबसे पहले what is Gati Shakti? Prime Minister's Gati Shakti. Gati Shakti आपका क्या है? It is a master plan. Master plan for what? For multimodal infrastructure development. Okay? It's a master plan for multimodal infrastructure development. Okay? That means that it was launched in October 21. It is subsumed under, मतलब ये उसका हिस्सा बन गया जो पहले 2019 में हमारा कौन सा प्लान किया गया था अनाउंस, इट वाज कॉल्ड द नेशनल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पाइपलाइन। ये नेशनल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पाइपलाइन अनाउंस की गई थी 2019 में, उसके अंडर ये सबस्यूम कर दिया गया है। आपको इसको बताने की इसलिए जरूरत है कि मान लीजिए प्रीलिम्स में आपको ऑप्शन देंगे गति शक्ति का, तो आपको पता होना चाहिए कि गति शक्ति में क्या क्या चीजें हैं। तो इट इज सबस्यूम्ड अंडर द 110 करोड़ national pipeline project which was announced in 2019. Now it is of no relevance. You have to understand that as on date, Gati Shakti is your master plan for a multimodal infrastructure development project which will bring down the cost of logistics. अब इसके अलावा इसमें क्या क्या चीजें included है, First and foremost, Gati Shakti is nothing physical. Gati Shakti is a digital platform. जैसे ही आप सुनेंगे कि कोई चीज डिजिटल होती है, उसका मतलब क्या होता है? उसका मतलब ये होता है that we are moving in terms of technology. So it is a digital platform. It is a digital platform which brings together seven engines, they say, 7 engines for infrastructure development. It involves 16 ministries, and it is said that through their synergy, the infrastructure of India will get a boost. अब ये कौन से? तो इसमें आपका आ जाता है पोर्ट्स, इसमें आ जाता है आपका रोडवेज, इसमें आपका आ जाता है रेलवेज, इसमें आपकी आ जाती है रोपवेज, इसमें आपका आ जाता है मैस ट्रांजिट सिस्टम, इसमें आपके आ जाते हैं वाटरवेज। कुछ मिस हुआ कि साथ के साथ हो गए? 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. कोई एक मुझसे मिस हो रहा है। So let me just go through it first. Road, railways, and yes, of course, airports. Okay, so the 7 horses involving 16 ministries are all going to be a part of Prime Minister's Gati Shakti plan for infrastructure development of India, where these ministries are going to come together, combine their synergy for mass rapid movement to result in growth. And this is all but nothing but digital platform. Digital platform क्या होगा कि आप physically कहीं नहीं जाएंगे, but you will be linked together, and there will be a transfer of technology, and there will be a transfer of information, and of course there will be a transfer of people and cargo. So what is the aim for the infrastructure development? Gati Shakti's aim is for seamless transition, for seamless movement of people and cargo from one system to another. That is the plan. Okay. Now, having said that, what is the development that we are looking for in terms of roadways? अब एक एक करके आप आ जाइए कि ये क्या क्या करने वाले हैं. In roadways, they are going to make express highways. और ये express highways, for these express highways, they are going to be doing an area of road में. They are going to make express highways. They are going to make express highways, और इसमें they are saying कि ये 25,000 किलोमीटर्स का एक्सप्रेस हाईवे 22-23 में बनाएंगे, जिसके ऊपर ये 20,000 करोड़ रुपीस स्पेंड करें. Okay, so these are the kilometers, 25,000 kilometers and 20,000 crores they're going to spend to make express highways in the country, which are going to be your national highways. National highways. तो एक नेशनल हाईवे मुंबई से दिल्ली के लिए भी बन रहा है, एक नागपुर से भी दिल्ली के लिए बन रहा है, and of course there are various highways which are coming up with UP and at other places. So that is the first that they are going to do. The second they are going to do is that which I said, they are going to have a seamless multimodal transfer of people and goods, Okay. Then what more they are going to do is going to have a open source mobility stack. Then what are they going to do? They are going to have a data exchange. और ये मेरे हिसाब से सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है. और इस डेटा एक्सचेंज के 2 पार्ट्स हैं. एक है कि the operators will be brought on a what is called a unified. इसको आप लिखिए प्लीज, क्योंकि इसका शॉर्ट फॉर्म आपका आएगा प्रीलिम्स में और पूछा जाएगा कि ये क्या बात है. Unified logistics interface platform. Interface platform. A unified logistics interface platform for data exchange, which is designed for, application programming interface. Okay, can I be heard and am I clear? Anybody can tell me that. I hope that the video is clear and I hope you can understand. So one is that there will be a data exchange. Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am. All clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so what I'm saying is that most important part is the data exchange between all logistic partners, and for this purpose, there will be an interface platform design for application programming interface. इसका कोई बहुत बड़ा चीज मतलब मत निकालिएगा. इसका मतलब सिर्फ इतना है कि आप कम पैसे में कोशिश करेंगे कि मान लीजिए आप एक जगह से एक व्यक्ति को या एक ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल को एक जगह से दूसरी जगह ले जाना चाहते हैं या किसी सामान को आप कहीं पहुंचाना चाहते हैं, तो उसके लिए आपको कोई कहीं भागदौड़ की जरूरत नहीं है. You will log in your data and you will tell them that this is what I have to offer. Do you have the means to carry this forward? So that is the interface platform which is going to take place. So please be clear about this. ULIP, which I have told you, and your APIL. ULIP क्या है और APIL क्या है, दोनों का आप ध्यान रखिएगा. तो one, it is going to take a seamless transfer of data from one mode of transport to the other. So if there are people and goods which you have to carry from one place to another, you can exchange notes with your other logistic partners for seamless transfer. The other, of course, is if you want to know where your cargo is lying, then this platform will be easily available to you. So that is another part of Bhakti Shakti. Then what do they say? They say that अब ये fifth point होगा आपका. Fifth point में क्या कह रहे हैं कि ये मल्टी मॉडल पार्क्स बनाएंगे. मल्टी मॉडल पार्क्स. अब ये मल्टी मॉडल पार्क्स in the first phase 4 जगह बनाने वाले हैं. And it will be under the PPP model. Okay. So under the PPP model, they are going to do a public-private partnership and create such 4 parks of multi-modal logistic parks. They are also known as the multi-modal logistic parks. ये तुम्हारी तैयारी होगी गति शक्ति की along with inclusive growth. तुम लोग को कहीं ना कहीं गति शक्ति लिखना है. See, in 250 words you can't write everything, but you should make the examiner realize that out of those 12 and a half marks, you cannot cut even half a mark of mine because I've written all the points. That is how your answer should come. All right. So, but I'm giving you Gati Shakti in detail because now we have done Gati Shakti. So whatever I'm taking up, I want to complete that for you. It shouldn't be left like that. It shouldn't be left isolated like that. So when we are saying this, we're saying that there will be multi-modal parks, multi-modal logistic parks under PPP, and in 22-23, we are going to do 4 of such parks. Then for railways में हम क्या क्या करने वाले हैं? हम railways में सबसे पहले new products बनाएंगे. हमारे यहाँ अगर कोई भी तरह की नई सर्विस प्रोवाइड होती है या a new scheme comes in, then we call that as a product. Like we have now got a public-private partnership for good shed development. Good shed में क्या होता है? आप अपने वैगन्स में भर के सामान एक जगह से दूसरी जगह ले जाते हैं और वो जो डिलीवरी पॉइंट होता है जहां से आप सामान लोड और अनलोड करते हैं उसको हम गुड शेड कहते हैं. तो जो वो गुड शेड है वो पहले रेलवे अपने पैसे से बनाती थी. अब ये गवर्नमेंट कहती है कि आप उसके लिए भी टेंडर इनवाइट करिए एंड गिव इट टू प्राइवेट पार्टीज हु विल डेवलप योर गुड शेड, use it for a period of 10 years, and then along with the whole good ship, they will transfer that facility back to the railways after a period of 10 years. जिसको हम एक PPP मॉडल के अंतर्गत बनाना चाहते हैं. अब PPP में कॉमन यूजर फैसिलिटी एक टर्म आप बहुत यूज कर सुनते हुए सुना होगा आपने. In other areas also, not only railways, common user facility in any PPP model, common user facility does come in. Now, what is common user facility? Is something which has been developed by the private party, but it is also going to be used by the government. It can be vice versa also, something which is developed by the government, used by a private party, and they pay for it. That is also there. When they do that, it is called lease. And otherwise, in common user facility, normally the private party builds and we also use it. तो ये common user facility को एक तरह से इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को डेवलप करने के लिए हम प्राइवेट पार्टी का इस्तेमाल करते हैं. तो according to the Gati Shakti plan, we are going to offer new services to the people. The railways will come up with new services, new products, new ideas, which it will sell to its customers. Then it goes on to say that it will help small and medium enterprise people to come forward. तो ये कह रही है कि रेलवे अपने products बनाएगी और new service offer करेगी, products and services offer करेगी. और ये किसके लिए होंगे? It should benefit दो लोगों को, एक farmers को और दूसरा किसको? मीडियम एंड स्मॉल एंटरप्राइजेस को. ओके, एमएससीपी को ये बेनिफिट करना चाहिए. अब फार्मर्स के लिए रेलवे क्या कर रही है? वो किसान रेल चला रही है. किसान रेल की खासियत क्या है कि आप उसमें सब प्रकार के ज्यादा करके आप उसमें पेरिशेबल प्रोडक्ट्स, मतलब ग्रीन वेजिटेबल्स, फ्रूट्स, एक कंट्री की जहां पे अबंडेंट प्रोडक्शन है और जहां पे कंट्री का डेफिसिट है. तो जैसे बहुत हमारी जो पहली किसान रेल सेंट्रल रेलवे ने ही चलाई थी, वो इट वाज फ्रॉम देवलाली टू मुजफ्फरपुर. मुजफ्फरपुर इज इन बिहार और हमने देवलाली से चलाया, विच इज नियर नासिक. तो यहाँ से हमने बहुत सारे अनियंस, फ्रूट्स, ग्रीन वेजिटेबल्स भर के भेजे. अब हमारे पास शोलापुर की एरिया में बहुत सारे, कुर्दवाड़ी है जैसे वहां पर, ये ऑल दीज एरियाज आर वेरी रिच इन प्रोडक्शन ऑफ पोमेग्रेनेट्स एंड ग्रेप्स, जिसकी हम मार्केट दिल्ली में और बिहार में एंड इवन एज फार साउथ एज त्रिवेंद्रम, वहां तक भी ये किसान रेल चल रही है. अब किसान रेल की खासियत क्या है कि इसमें जो फूड एंड प्रोसेसिंग मिनिस्ट्री है वो हमें 50% सब्सिडी दे रही है फार्मर्स को. तो रेलवे पूरा का पूरा पैसा फार्मर्स से ले लेती है, पर उसको 50% उसको वापस करती है. वो कौन पे करता है? वो सब्सिडी कौन दे रहा है? फूड प्रोसेसिंग मिनिस्ट्री दे रही है. दैट इज व्हाई द किसान रेल हैज बिकम वेरी पॉपुलर. तो छोटे से छोटा किसान आए चाहे बड़े से बड़ा किसान आए, वो अपनी लोडिंग जो उसका पेमेंट है उसका सिर्फ 50% देता है. तो इट इज सेइंग that Gati Shakti says that now railways will design products and services which should benefit the small and medium enterprises and also the farmers. Then it goes on to say that we should have more Vande Bharat trains. Ab Vande Bharat train kya hai? Vande Bharat trains are designed like aeroplanes. It's a 16-coach train. It's a little expensive as compared to the traditional, but its speed can be raised up to 200 kilometers. So if its speed can run up to 200 kilometers per hour, it is considered to be the fastest mode. It is designed very sleekly. इसके coaches बहुत comfortable होते हैं और आपको इसमें free infotainment, Wi-Fi सब चीज available है. So they are saying that the number of Vande Bharat trains is got to increase to 400 now. 400 Vande Bharat trains for India. Then they say that there should be something called the 100 new generation, 100 new PM Gati Shakti cargo terminals. आप कार्गो टर्मिनल्स को गुड शेयर से कंपेयर कर लीजिए, but they can also be near the port where we will find. So cargo terminal will be nothing but a warehousing kind of thing. Warehousing क्या होता है? जहाँ पे आप अपना सामान स्टोर करते हैं. तो ऐसा कहा जा रहा है कि हम 100 ऐसे गति शक्ति कार्गो टर्मिनल्स बनाएंगे अंडर द पीएम गति शक्ति प्रोग्राम. ये भी हम करने वाले हैं. ऑलराइट. अब इसके अलावा टू अवॉइड train accidents, there is something which is called the kavach. अब कवच क्या होगा? ये एक इंडिजिनियस प्रोग्राम है. इंडिजिनियस प्रोग्राम है जो रेलवेज इनकार करेगी खुद इंडिजिनियसली. 2000 किलोमीटर्स को वो पूरी तरह सिक्योर करेगी और सेफ बनाएगी कि यहाँ पे कोई एक्सीडेंट नहीं हो, तो उसको क्या टर्म दिया जा रहा है, कवच. सो देयर विल बी सर्टेन सेफ्टी एनहांसमेंट about 2000 kilometers of the Indian Railways so that the accidents do not take place. So that इसके important चीज क्या है, एक तो कि ये indigenous होगा, दूसरा इसका नाम कवच है. Those are two things which are important from your prelim point of view. अब इसके बाद आपने इन्होंने और क्या क्या कहा है, इन्होंने कहा है कि एक mass urban transport होगा which is nothing but your metro. तो ये कह रहे हैं कि mass urban transport systems आप बनाएंगे which includes your metro. It also includes your bus services. This is a concept which is akin to foreign countries. Like for example, in Singapore, you have a train, bus, waterway system, and the same ticket can be used for all three legs of the journey. तो कुछ पार्ट आप पानी द्वारा ट्रैवल करते हैं, कुछ आप बस के द्वारा ट्रैवल करते हैं, और कुछ आप ट्रेन द्वारा ट्रैवल करते हैं, पर एक ही टिकट आपके लिए सब जगह लागू है. Not only that, जो टर्मिनल्स ऑफ एक्सचेंज होते हैं, मतलब आप सबवे में से निकले, नीचे ट्रेन थी, आप ऊपर निकले सबवे में से, यू बोर्डेड अ बस. आप बस आपको लेके चली गई वाटरवे के पास, वहां पर आपके लिए एक छोटा सा हब बना हुआ है, एंड देयर इज अ बोट व्हिच इज अवेलेबल which will take you across the river to your house wherever you are staying. So all these facilities are seamless. They say it's seamless and you can do that. So for example, in Bombay, they are making a waterway right here on Marine Drive, बिल्कुल घर के पास, एंड एक यहाँ पे चर्च गेट स्टेशन है मेरे जस्ट घर के बगल में. आई एम गिविंग यू दिस एग्जांपल सो दैट इट बिकम्स रियलिस्टिक फॉर यू. सो द मुंबई मेट्रो इज कमिंग राइट अक्रॉस द रोड. Then there is the Churchgate station and the waterway is just 500 meters away. तो इसके टर्मिनल्स ये हर जगह बनाएंगे और कोशिश करेंगे कि पैसेंजर का ट्रांसफर एक जगह से दूसरी जगह बहुत सीमलेसली हो जाए. नहीं, अभी तो हमारी जो लोकल ट्रेन है उसमें पर डे बिफोर द कोविड पीरियड वी कैरी अबाउट 34 to 40 lakh passengers per day, and those are packed up into some 1775 services. So you can understand how much of burden there is on one mode of transport. तो जब आप मल्टी मॉडल ट्रांसपोर्ट करेंगे और सबको साथ लेके एक प्लेटफॉर्म पर लाएंगे, तो आपका जो ये ट्रांसफर ऑफ पीपल है वो एक जगह से दूसरी जगह हो जाएगा. तो वी आर थिंकिंग that in terms of population, we will be better able to handle whatever kind of rush that we are going to have. तो ये mass transit आपका जो system है, ये सिर्फ metro से related है. In fact, if you go to Gujarat also, you go to a city like Surat, वहां पे भी उन्होंने बस की सर्विसेज और ट्रेन सर्विसेज को जोड़ने की कोशिश करी है. They have also come out very well with that. So that is your, and then you have these पर्वतमाला ropeways. अब पर्वतमाला रोपवेज कहाँ ये बनाएंगे? ये पर्वतमाला रोपवेज बनाएंगे या तो बहुत हिली एरिया में या अर्बन एरिया जो बहुत डेंसली पॉपुलेटेड है, तो वहां पे क्योंकि कोई और मोड ऑफ ट्रांसपोर्ट ऑल्टरनेटिव नहीं बन सकता, तो वहां की भीड़ को कम करने के लिए, डाइवर्ट करने के लिए दिस काइंड ऑफ अ टेक्नोलॉजी विल बी यूज्ड. फिर उन्होंने बोला है फाइनली कि ये क्या करेंगे, ये करेंगे एक कैपेसिटी building for infrastructure projects. और जैसे इस गवर्नमेंट की आदत है, ये हर चीज के लिए एक कमीशन बना देती है, उसी तरह से there is a capacity building commission. A capacity building commission. Okay. There is a capacity building commission which will work across the ministries and try to understand their projects and exchange data in relation to it. So it will also see through what kind of infrastructure projects are coming up and how the state and the center, Gati Shakti includes the state government also, please don't forget that, how the state and center can synergize to bring these infrastructure projects and make them fruitful. ये आपका हो गया गति शक्ति. अब गति शक्ति आपके कौन से पैरामीटर ऑफ इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ में आता है? It comes in your industrial development. It also is a part of your social development. It's also a part of your economic development. But there is something called inclusive development, जो इन सब चीज को सबस्यूम करता है. अब inclusive development में क्या क्या चीजें आ रही? Inclusive development आपका employment generation है, आपका agriculture है, आपका education है और आपका health services है. ये मोटी मोटी चीजें आप बिल्कुल याद करके रखिएगा। जब हमने स्किल डेवलपमेंट से स्टार्ट किया था तो सबसे ऊपर हमने स्किल डेवलपमेंट का था, क्योंकि उसके बगैर आपको नौकरी नहीं मिलेगी। अगर आपके पास एजुकेशन है तो भी आपको नौकरी नहीं मिलेगी। अगर आप ज्यादा करके एग्रीकल्चर में इन्वॉल्व है तो अगर आप उसको इंप्रूव नहीं करेंगे तो आपकी ग्रोथ नहीं होगी। अब हेल्थ और एजुकेशन के बगैर आप आगे बढ़ नहीं सकते हैं। इसलिए ये सारे मेजर पैरामीटर्स हैं इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ के, एंड इन देयर ओन राइट ऑल्सो they are very very important. So now what has the government planned for agriculture? और वो जो स्टैटिक स्कीम्स है गवर्नमेंट जिनके बारे में मैंने आपसे जिक्र किया है, वो आपकी एक स्टैटिक इंफॉर्मेशन है, उसको आप हरदम के लिए याद रखिएगा। बट उस पे इंपॉर्टेंट डेवलपमेंट करंट में क्या हुआ है, दैट आई एम ट्राइंग टू टीच यू। Now, for the first and most important point, what they have told us in agriculture, something which Samriddhi was talking about just the other day, is that they are giving farmers what is called a 2.37 crore MSP subsidy for wheat and paddy, and this will be distributed to how many farmers? 1.63 crore farmers. तो वो एमएसपी सपोर्ट प्राइस आपको बताएगा व्हीट और पैडी के लिए, उसके लिए हमारी सरकार 2.37 करोड़ spend करने वाली है। And if you remember in the previous class, I had told you that in terms of GDP, the contribution of agriculture is 16.37%, and the largest sector which contributes to the GDP is your service sector, which is almost 56.7%. And of course, there is the industrial sector, which is doing a good enough 39-38%. And the least is agriculture, but it is the most densely populated, which we talked about. This guy's unemployment, and I spoke about it the last time. So farmers are always looking for some kind of a support system. In fact, one of the economists very happily said that in a country like India, we are always trying to do too good. मतलब हम सिर्फ गुड ही नहीं करना चाहते, हम टू गुड करना चाहते। क्यों टू गुड करना चाहते? बिकॉज दैट इज द बेस्ट मीन्स टू गार्नर योर वोट्स। सो दिस is what happens in a democracy which is still learning to grow. But believe me, being a democratic country is very very important. And when you roam the world, अगर ईश्वर चाहेगा तो आप और दुनिया देखेंगे, और जब आप और दुनिया देखेंगे तो लगेगा आपको कि आपका देश कई मामलों में कई दोषों से बहुत अच्छा है, और उसका सबसे बड़ा हॉलमार्क है इज अ वाइब्रेंट डेमोक्रेसी। There are two ways in which you can look at the farmers' laws. One, farmers' law was a very progressive step. You should have gone ahead with it. Yes, capitalism is there, but it is always said that socialism has never succeeded in the world, and it is only the capitalism. When we talked about that elephant's trunk, हमने एलिफेंट ट्रंक की बात की थी ना, ग्रोथ ऑफ अ कंट्री। तो जब कैपिटलिज्म आप एम्प्लॉय करते हैं तो पहले तो ये खूब बढ़ती है, फिर धड़ाक से नीचे गिरती है, और उसके बाद फिर ये आगे बढ़ती है। बट सोशलिज्म में ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। सोशलिज्म सिर्फ ऐसा और सिर्फ नीचे जाता है। ये दोनों, दिस इज ओवर a period of time that this has been concluded. So all economies are a mixture of capitalism and socialism, especially when they are in the developing phase. तो अगर कहा गया कि farmers law is a very big capitalistic move, we need to counter argue with the fact that minimum support prices are being provided by the taxes which the common man is paying to the government. And do the farmers only have the right for MSPs? They don't. At some point of time, we have to let go. We have to make a free market for that. The other point that I wanted to make is that when these farmers' laws were proposed, it was a progressive step. But when we withdrew them only because of UP elections. So what does it show? That we are still a vibrant democracy where a government cannot be autocratic and take us for a ride. ये बात और है कि हम इस लॉ को और तरीके से लाने के लिए, जैसे आरटीआई में उन्होंने आरटीआई को पहले कोशिश किया कि खत्म कर दें, आरटीआई को खत्म नहीं कर सकते थे, तो उन्होंने इतने सारे अमेंडमेंट लगा दिए कि अब आरटीआई इज टूथलेस। अब आरटीआई का कोई मीनिंग नहीं। If you look at all the amendments which have come forward, the same they have done with the environmental impact assessment. उसका ड्राफ्ट ईआई निकाल दिया और उसके बाद सो गए, और उसके अलावा उन्होंने 1000+ अमेंडमेंट्स कर दिए ईआईए में, और वो कंटिन्यू कर रहे हैं। तो दे आर नथिंग बट द ड्राफ्ट ईआईए इन अनदर फॉर्म। So EIA 2020 is already being implemented by these laws. So we have done away with EI. अगर आप देखें एक्चुअली तो ये गवर्नमेंट कह रही है कि ये सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट की तरफ काम कर रही है, बट EIA इज अ नोवेयर देयर, और जहां EIA नहीं होगा वहां पे देयर विल बी नो फीडबैक सिस्टम, देयर विल बी नो पीपल्स वॉइस इन एनी डेवलपमेंट प्रोजेक्ट. नाउ दिस इज द ट्रूथ, बट यू कैन नॉट से द ट्रूथ, यू ओनली हैव टू से what the government is saying. So आपको you have to be correct. So when I was talking about the farmers law and its repeal, I wanted to tell you that we are a very vibrant democracy. You will value it only when you see other countries. So coming back to what the farmers are now getting, and that we are too good to them. We are always thinking about the poor. What about the middle class? Doesn't it need support? Doesn't the service sector need to grow? The government feels that it is doing, but it's not doing enough. The poor feel the government is doing, but it's not doing enough. The rich always complain they are being taxed, they are being overtaxed. But abhi aap dekhiye, over the budgets of this government, the rich are not being taxed, and that is why that deficit is going to grow. So we need to tax them a little bit more. Again, another very good example of equity and equality is your system of taxation. Taxation में जो rich है, उसका जो ब्रैकेट ऑफ टैक्सेशन है या टैक्सेस जो वो पे करता है वो बहुत हाई है, जबकि आप देखते हैं कि जो लोअर मिडिल क्लास है या जो कमिंग अप, अभी उन्होंने स्टार्टअप्स को एक और साल का मोरेटोरियम दे दिया फॉर नॉट बीइंग टैक्स्ड. सो दिस डिफरेंस इन टैक्सेशन इज अनदर एग्जांपल ऑफ इक्विटी. Everybody is going to give some part of its income to the government for running and maintaining citizens' facilities and passenger amenities. But at the same time, we are going to tax the people differentially because of a concept of equity to which we are committed. We're committed to an equity policy because we give reservations to the ST, STs and the OBCs, that we make policies which are favorable to the women at large, and we speak of equal pay for equal work, but there is a difference there also. And then we talk about, like in promotions for the state governments, the reserve category gets an upper hand. It has not come in the central government, but it will come any of the days. In services, we give them an extra advantage of reservation. If you look at those people who are below the poverty line, अगर आप उनको रिजर्वेशन दे रहे हैं तो वो भी एक केस है इक्विटी का. So all these differential processes are favoring equity. So taxation is one of them. Just thought I would let you know. So coming back to what the government is doing for the farmers, सबसे पहला 2.37 lakh का direct payment in the form of MSPs for paddy and wheat, and this is going to be given to how many farmers? 1.63 crore farmers के बीच में ये डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा. फिर दूसरा इन्होंने क्या कहा है? इन्होंने कहा है कि ये एक स्कीम चलाएंगे जो होगा केमिकल फ्री नेचुरल फार्मिंग. केमिकल फ्री नेचुरल फार्मिंग. अब ये केमिकल फ्री नेचुरल फार्मिंग कहाँ कराने वाले हैं? यूपी में इलेक्शन है, तो जो 5 किलोमीटर गंगा की इधर उधर की जमीन है उसके ऊपर ये केमिकल फ्री नेचुरल फार्मिंग होगी. So 5 kilometers of land along the Ganga, Okay, so 5 kilometers of land along the Ganga. You can forget the UP election. Don't try that. Ganga is a big enough river. It does across a number of states. So just keep it to that only. So 5 kilometers of land on either side are going to be केमिकल फ्री विथ नेचुरल फार्मिंग. उसके बाद उन्होंने क्या कहा है? उन्होंने कहा है कि एक ये बनाएंगे ऑयल सीड्स के प्रोडक्शन को बढ़ाने के लिए ये प्लान बनाएंगे. सो ऑयल सीड्स विल गेट एन इंक्रीज. आपके ज्योग्राफी का क्वेश्चन तैयार हो गया कि ऑयल सीड्स क्या होते हैं, कहाँ उगाए जाते हैं, इनके उत्पादन में कौन सी क्लाइमेटिक कंडीशंस इंपॉर्टेंट है. ऑयल सीड्स प्रोडक्शन देख लीजिए. नेक्स्ट ईयर 2023 को ये उससे भी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है. 2023 को ईयर ऑफ मिलेट्स कह दिया गया है, तो गवर्नमेंट पूरी कोशिश करेगी कि मिलेट्स के उत्पादन को ढेर तरीके से बढ़ाए. मिलेट्स कौन कौन से हैं? आपका ज्वार, बाजरा, रागी, ये आपकी नाचनी. ऑल दीज आर मिलेट्स व्हिच आर स्टर्डी प्लांट्स, रिक्वायर लेस वाटर, are very nutritionally overloaded with a lot of vitamins and minerals, and so therefore they are considered to be the crops for the poor. So millets को crop of the poor कहा जाता है, but they are nutritionally overloaded and therefore very important. So next year 2023 is the year of millets. तो millets क्या होते हैं उनके बारे में भी आप पढ़ लीजिएगा और कहाँ ज्यादा लगाए जाते हैं. Then we spoke of something called the किसान drones, और किसान drones का भी इस्तेमाल सरकार कह रही है कि वो एक बिग वे में करेगी ताकि वो एग्रीकल्चर को फोर्टिफाई कर सके, इम्प्रूव कर सके. इसके अलावा एग्रीकल्चर में वो क्या कहते हैं कि वो कहते हैं कि हम एक केन बेतवा लिंक प्रोजेक्ट बनाएंगे, जिसके बारे में वन ऑफ आवर स्टूडेंट्स हैज डिस्कस्ड द अदर डे. इसमें दे आर गोइंग टू स्पेंड 1400 crore rupees and they are going to irrigate how many areas of land? 9.08 hectares. इसमें लाख ऐड कर दीजिएगा. 9.08 lakh hectares of land is going to come under irrigation. Forget the part how much of it is going to be submerged underwater. You don't have to remember that. Not only this, they are saying that they're going to work on linkage projects of many rivers. Now, what are those rivers that they're going to work on? Just remember in your mind, it is not important for you here. एक तो है आपका दमन गंगा पिंजल प्रोजेक्ट, एक है आपका नर्मदा ताप्ती प्रोजेक्ट, एक है आपका गोदावरी कृष्णा प्रोजेक्ट, एक है आपका कृष्णा पेनार प्रोजेक्ट और एक है आपका पेनार कावेरी प्रोजेक्ट. और ये सारे के सारे साउथ के हैं. तो साउथ, इफ यू लुक एट साउथ, a lot of canal irrigation and what is called indigenous kind of irrigation exists in the south. और इन सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स के द्वारा वो जो indigenous system है वो खत्म हो जाएगा. But for now, it is important to note that the government is trying its best to provide water to each and every household. We will come to that part again in a little in the next part. Okay. Then food processing ko, the government is trying to fortify food processing by providing a comprehensive package which the state government will help to provide to the farmers regarding knowledge of which kind of fruits and vegetables can grow in a particular region. तो उस knowledge को बढ़ाएगी सरकार और उसके द्वारा farmer की production को या productivity को बढ़ाया जाएगा. अब skill development में मैंने आपको बहुत कुछ बताया था, but इसके लिए आपको एक बार और फिर से जो करंट है वो मैं बता देती हूँ. जिसको मैंने आपको प्रधानमंत्री कौशल योजना बताई थी और आपको जनधन के उस पे वो पैसे देते हैं वो भी बताई थी. पर अब आप इसमें इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट क्या है? दिस I remember that some child had spoken yesterday about the Shram portal. So the Shram portal becomes very important. According to me, it is one of the most important topics for the present time, and I'm repeating that again. So इसमें क्या है? They are saying कि they will link skill development के लिए they will link what is called the Udyam E-Shram. National Carrier Services, and what is called the Atmanirbhar Skilled employer mapping. इसको आप वर्ड जो देंगे वो है आपका असीम, ASEEM, असीम. इसमें आप क्या कह रहे हैं? आत्मनिर्भर स्किल्ड एम्प्लॉयर मैपिंग असीम पोर्टल आप बनाएंगे जो कि आप उद्यम ई-श्रम पोर्टल से इसको लिंक करेंगे. उसके बाद आप 130 लाख MSMEs को, मतलब मीडियम एंड स्मॉल एंटरप्राइजेस को क्रेडिट फैसिलिटी देंगे अंडर द इमरजेंसी क्रेडिट लिंक गारंटी स्कीम. Under the emergency credit link guarantee scheme, also what is called the ECLGS. इसके अलावा जो क्रेडिट गारंटी है माइक्रो और स्मॉल एंटरप्राइजेस को वो आगे बढ़ाएंगे. इसके साथ साथ रेजिंग एंड एक्सेलरेटिंग MSME परफॉर्मेंस, जिसको आप रैम्प प्रोग्राम कहते हैं. आई रिपीट, raising and accelerating MSME performance, which is called the RAM program, will be further extended and rolled out to make these training programs more resilient and important. इसके साथ साथ there will be a digital ecosystem for skilling and livelihood, जिसमें कि ड्रोन शक्ति और ड्रोन एज अ सर्विस के स्टार्टअप को सपोर्ट किया जाएगा. आई रिपीट, ड्रोन शक्ति एंड ड्रोन एज अ सर्विस, जिसको आप कहते हैं, एक आपका हो गया ड्रोन शक्ति, ठीक है, और एक आपका हो गया ड्रोन एज अ सर्विस, इसको कहते हैं द्रास. Sometimes what happens is that in the prelims they ask you such short forms and expect you to know it, so don't get confused about it. Just remember कि ये ऐसा है. इस तरह के स्टार्टअप्स को गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया सपोर्ट करने वाली है. अब इसी के साथ साथ आई वांटेड टू शेयर विथ यू something which is called the provident, एक minute, yeah, this is called the production linked incentive scheme. I just wanted to talk to you about this. It's called the production linked incentive scheme. अब ये जो आपकी प्रोडक्शन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव स्कीम है, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. इट हैज नॉट कम दिस ईयर, इट वाज देयर लास्ट ईयर आल्सो, बट पहले ये सिर्फ ऑटो पार्ट से रिलेटेड थी. अब ये ऑटोमोबाइल्स में एक्सटेंड कर गई है. पहले ये 3 ही इंडस्ट्री को कवर करती थी. एज ऑन डेट इट इज कवरिंग 13 इंडस्ट्रीज. इसका आउटले इस ईयर के लिए 1.97 लाख करोड़ है. Now, what is important under this productive linked incentive scheme is that if you invite a person from outside to set up a plant, or you yourself are planning to indigenously build anything under these heads or in these sectors, I will mention the sectors to you, then in your whatever be your liabilities, you are going to get a 5% bonus on whatever you are going to be using. So the government is going to support you and give you extra incentive for having come forward and put in capital in these areas. And according to me, this is a very, very important plan of the government of India, and the foresight which is here. Where it is going to take us, we don't really know. But it is very, very important that this kind of scheme has been put into place, because it deals with what Yash was talking about the other day, which is called semiconductors. It deals with mobile parts. It also deals with the defense equipments. It talks about digitization and how we are now going to go towards an e-governance kind of a portfolio. It talks about pharma. So the industries which are covered under it are auto parts, automobiles, chemicals, minerals, pharmaceuticals, medical assistance, then I told you semiconductors, aviation, chemicals, electronic systems, food processing, and of course I told you medical. So these are, mining also is there, and renewable energy sources. तो अगर आप जैसे ड्रोन बनाते हैं, या आप कोई मोबाइल का आप असेंबलिंग भी करते हैं, या आप कोई माइक्रोचिप बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं, सेमीकंडक्टर्स बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं, या ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री में आप किसी प्रकार का इंडिजिनस डेवलपमेंट करते हैं, या बाहर से आप निवेश लाते हैं, तो इन सारे एरियाज में काम करने की वजह से आपका जो भी बोनस होगा उसको गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया सप्लीमेंट करेगी या आपको इस काम के लिए सपोर्ट करेगी. Please do not forget to read about this production linked incentive scheme, because for me it is a very important part of inclusive growth. These are schemes which will generate employment, and once employment comes in, your growth will start. The growth will come. There will be a boost to the middle class. The middle class will again reinvest and save, and this will further lead to more job opportunities in the economy. So this becomes very, very important. Now we come to education. Education we did the last time when I talked about Prime Minister की e-vidya scheme, but we talk about a little bit about the health part, ताकि आपको ये बता दिया जाए कि अभी हमारे पास हेल्थ की या बेसिक एमिनिटीज प्रोवाइड करने के लिए क्या क्या योजना है. एक तो है हर घर नल से जल. ओके, सो द मिनट यू ओपन अ टैप यू गेट वाटर. तो आपका ये है हर घर नल से जल. A very important word, and that is why you keep getting questions on water harvesting. You keep getting irrigation systems in India because a lot is being done by the government on this. All right. Then you have the Prime Minister's Awas Yojana, जिसमें ये कह रहे हैं कि हम 80 लाख घर बना के गरीबों में देंगे. तो ये इनका ये भी है. फिर नॉर्थ ईस्ट का डेवलपमेंट आपने अभी सुना होगा कि वहां पे बहुत सारे रेल का जो है रेल बहुत सारी रीजन्स में जा चुकी है. सो नाउ इवन त्रिपुरा इज लिंक्ड बाय रेल in the northeastern region. They are putting in a lot of money in the northeast for its development. Then they talked about something which is called as the vibrant village program. A vibrant village program. A vibrant village program में आपकी villages जो बहुत border area में पड़ती हैं, especially in the north, इन कुछ विलेजेस को लेकर के यहाँ पे रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी सोर्सेज बनाए जाएंगे, टूरिस्ट अपॉर्चुनिटीज बनाई जाएगी, एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड की जाएगी, हेल्थ प्रोवाइड की जाएगी फॉर देम टू ग्रो. दिस इज गोइंग टू बी अ पार्ट ऑफ योर vibrant village program. These are two points which you need to put in. And another very important part which will help according to me, according with everything which is happening, and we will take a session on e-governance. I'll try and take it for you tomorrow only. It'll be a short class, but it will explain to you what is e-governance, because the next road for development is nothing but digitization. The next industries for the future are nothing but your sunrise industries. Those which are dealing with artificial intelligence, those which are dealing with blockchains, and you need to understand what they are, because they are your future. Whether they come as a part of your UPSC or not, but they might ask you questions related to those areas, that what is India doing in the field of digitization, in the field of sunrise industries. So you should be aware about that. So according to me, to give a boost to digital payments, you have about, in India, 1.5 lakh post offices, and all these post offices are now going to be linked with the bank accounts. Not only that, all post offices are going to act as banks for the future. तो अब जो पोस्ट ऑफिस है वो सिर्फ आपका, क्योंकि आप तो चिट्ठी कोई भेजता ही नहीं, आप मुझे व्हाट्सएप कर देते हैं या मुझे टेलीग्राम पे बता देते हैं और हमारा व्यू एक्सचेंज हो जाता है. तो पोस्ट ऑफिस तो रिडंडेंट हो चुके हैं, कोई चिट्ठी लिख नहीं रहा अभी कोई. अभी आप तो कभी जाते नहीं, nobody does sends a telegraph or anything to anyone. So post offices have become redundant. तो अब पोस्ट ऑफिस will be the next banking systems का most important part, and they will be becoming a part of the core banking system. So we will say 1.5 lakh post offices will be converted into banks of the future. तो अभी जो आप देख रहे थे आधार कार्ड की बेसिस पे, एक आपका आधार रहेगा, एक आपका मोबाइल रहेगा, जो मैंने आपको जैम बताया था, और सरकार का जनधन योजना. तो जैम जो हुआ था वो उसी के तहत अब आप देखेंगे कि under the government's program for digitization of payments, it is bringing about 1.5 lakh post offices all over the country to become an essential part of the banking system, and they will all be enabled with net banking. Other than this, there will be 75 digital banking units in 75 districts of the country, which will be run by scheduled commercial banks. So 75 digital banking units in 75 districts, and this will be under the scheduled commercial bank. तो अब आप ये देख रहे हैं that the country is progressing towards digitization. इतना सारी चीज आपको inclusive growth के द्वारा एक तरीके से मैंने पढ़ाने की कोशिश करी है. There are more other things that are there, which is the government claims that it has over a period of time, meaning in the last few years, it has done away with 25,000 compliances. तो अगर आपको किसी चीज के लिए सरकार की परमिशन चाहिए होती है, जैसे लाइसेंस कोई चाहिए होता है, उसके लिए पहले बहुत फॉर्मेलिटीज होती थी. अब उन्होंने कह दिया कि हमने ऐसी 25,000 कंप्लायंसेस खत्म कर दी हैं और बोला है कि 1,486 1486 उन्होंने लॉज रिपील कर दी है under the aegis of what this government calls is the ease of doing business. Ease of doing business. और ये ease of doing business का phase 1 is over. Now we have entered into phase 2. कैसे ease of doing business का phase 2 चल रहा है, वैसे हमारे industrial revolution का कौन सा phase चल रहा है? Phase 4. We are in the 4th phase of our industrial revolution. Don't forget that. तो ये जो हमने अपना इनका जो स्लोगन है उसका क्या है ना, मिनिमम गवर्नमेंट एंड मैक्सिमम गवर्नेंस। मतलब ये गवर्नमेंट बिलीव करती है कि ये अपने सिटीजन्स को एम्पावर कर रही है टू रूल देमसेल्व्स। तो ये क्या, ये किस तरह का गवर्नेंस हो गया? ये हो गया ट्रस्ट बेस्ड गवर्नेंस। It's a trust-based governance. So please go to sleep with a trust-based governance in your mind. There can be nothing more untruthful than this, but it's all right. If the government claims it, then so be it. So, but the fact that we have really cut down on the number of rules required for a clearance is absolutely spectacular. अगर आप देखिए तो पासपोर्ट पहले बन ही नहीं पाता था, एक फोन लगाने के लिए कितना टाइम लगता था. If to get a Wi-Fi connectivity in your house was such a big task. Now everything is available within one call, within 2 hours you get everything together in one place. So all those things are happening now. They are saying we are going to move towards e-passports. All this digitization of all land records. They're saying not only that, they will link the land records and other laws and other things like, business details and stuff like that between the center and the state. तो ये कह रहे हैं कि इस तरह के वो IT platforms बनाएंगे for the future, so that there is a synergy between the center and the state. So far as land records are concerned, so far as business details are concerned, and as we move towards this kind of a digitization, one of the students who mentioned about cyberspace crimes, all that is going to become very, very important. So, ये जो digitization है, this is a step forward and it will take us one step ahead in terms of doing away with all those land records. So, इससे क्या होगा? वो जो आपका revenue officer है, स्टेट में जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे या तालुकेदार जो जहां पे रहता है, उसकी वो जो क्षमता थी पहले लैंड रिकॉर्ड्स को डिस्ट्रॉय करने की, लैंड को ट्रांसफर करने की, उसमें गलत काम करने की, वो सब अब खत्म हो जाएगी. तो क्या होगा? पहले आपका सर्वे होगा और ये फिर आपके डिजिटल नोट्स हरदम के लिए रिकॉर्ड के फॉर्म में बन जाएंगे. आपको जहां कहीं भी चाहिए होगा, प्रेस ऑफ बटन पे आप अपने आईडी के अगेंस्ट उसको डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं और उसका इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. इस तरह के एक्सेलरेटेड कॉर्पोरेट एग्जिट, पहले अगर मान लीजिए कि आप डिफॉल्ट कर गए और आपको अपना बिजनेस वाइंड अप करना है, तो इसको वाइंड अप करने के लिए करीब करीब 2 साल लग जाता था. सरकार कहती है कि अब हम आपको 6 महीने के अंदर आपको, जिसको कहते हैं CPACE, they call it Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exit, CPACE, Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exit. इसके द्वारा ये कोशिश करेंगे कि आपको जितनी जल्दी हो सके आप अपने एंटरप्राइज को रैप अप कर सकते हैं. फिर वो डेवलपमेंट ऑफ एंटरप्राइज के हब्स बनाना चाहते हैं ताकि सर्विस क्लास को वहां से एक तरह की पुश मिले. तो वन नेशन वन रजिस्ट्रेशन सॉफ्टवेयर is what the government is claiming. I repeat, one nation, one registration software is what the government is claiming. Then for all green initiatives, it says that all green clearances or green initiatives will get a one window clearance, which is called Parvesh. Parvesh का full form क्या है? Proactive and responsive facilitation by interactive, virtuous and environmental single window hub. इतना बड़ा मत लिखाओ, अब तुम लोग याद कर लो, मैं बहुत थक गई हूँ, तुम लोग भी थक गए होगे. We've had enough of inclusive growth. We are so done with it now. proactive and responsive facilitation by interactive, virtuous, and environmental single window hub. I repeat, proactive and responsive facilitation by interactive, virtuous, and environmental single window hub for all green clearances. So one nation, one registration के साथ we bring to a close my lecture on inclusive growth. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed. I had to run around a lot to put all the papers together. I don't know how many articles I read. I really got sick of inclusive growth. But I hope you got everything on your paper because all of it is important according to me. And every word that you put in your answers is going to be important. I would love if you could give me a feedback on this lecture. Were you able to understand my movement from one part to the other? Were you able to link up the concepts together like I tried to do it for you? It would be good if you would say, Ki, this is the part you understood and this is the part you didn't understand. It would help me for my further classes. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.